Welcome to House Money, the podcast that cuts through the noise for buyers, sellers, and agents along the Wasatch Front and beyond. Together, we dive into unfiltered, no-nonsense insights to help you win in today's market, whether you're buying your first home, selling smart, or stepping up as an agent. No fluff, just real strategies that work. This is House Money. Welcome back to House Money. I'm your host, Rychen Jones. I'm an associate broker and realtor here in the Greater Salt Lake area. And we are here to talk to you, buyers and sellers, would-be buyers and sellers, about why it is important to have not just an agent working with you and for you, but a great agent. And I've invited one of my good friends, my mentor in real estate, my coach, my guru, Bryan Hurd, who we'll let Bryan introduce himself in a minute here, but Bryan is the epitome of a great agent. I learned at the School of Real Estate from Bryan. And so a lot of the ways we do things are very similar, because that's where I learned from. So I want to have Bryan on here. Again, I told him the only rule here is we are going to be unapologetic in how we talk about the importance of having a great agent. So Bryan, welcome. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, thanks for letting me in today. I appreciate it. A little bit about myself. My name's Bryan Hurd. I've been a real estate agent for over 20 years, which every time I say that now, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Does that sound incredible? Because when I met you, you were like at 14.
Yeah, it's really weird because it just puts me in a space where I'm like, I'm glad I've been doing this that long. But there's also this part where like it makes me think like I ripe for a reinvention because some things haven't changed, right? The basics haven't changed, but there's a lot of things that have changed. And there's a lot of things like I found myself multiple times over the last couple of months where I'm like, okay, dude, is this like a killing sacred cow concept here where I've just done it this way? I love the analogy. You ever heard the story about the ham that doesn't fit in the pan? Sorry, the ham that they cut the end off and they've been doing it for generations. And then they finally asked the mom and she's like, why do you do that? She's like, I don't know. Grandma always did that. And then they go to grandma and they're like, Grandma, why did you cut the end of the ham off? And then she said, because the pan was too short. And I just sit there and think, dude, are there things where the pan I need to just, evaluate? So it's been actually really good. I feel, happy and blessed that I get to do something that I still believe in. I believe in home ownership. And even though there's challenges that are absolutely challenging the first-time home buyer and in the real estate market as general, I feel like the value of good real estate agents actually has increased more so than ever because markets are cyclical and we're in a different market than we were just a few years ago. And it requires different skill sets. And there's different elements to that market that are even coming in now. Change is always a great opportunity to level up. And I think that's one of the things you and I have always really identified with. It's like, hey, if we're going to do this, let's be good. The amateur and the pro, let's be the pro.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we should mention you ran a team for a number of years. And on that team, you had agents coming through, some successful, some struggled, you saw things. But as far as like experience goes, over the course of the years, a couple thousand transactions probably from your team? Yeah.
I've in one way, indirectly or directly, been involved in well over 1,000 transactions in my real estate career, which I feel fortunate because, the irony is that the actual work we're doing is very much the same contract, the same process. But the reality is every real estate transaction has a story and there's an experience to it. And the more of those you have, the more you can say, oh, I've done this before. Dude, can we try this? So great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's jump in here a little bit and we'll talk about some experiences. And I really want you to highlight where you feel it's appropriate. Don't be bashful here. Like, don't be afraid to share your experiences or how you've helped people. Again, a lot of the things that maybe people will never ever see or know about because they're just things you just do. And I feel like I'm in that place too, where if I would like write my process, I couldn't jam all the things that I find myself doing in a transaction to help a buyer or a seller. They're almost like instinctual at this point because we keep our compass focused on serving client, making sure they have a great experience, things like that. To where there's things that come up here and there where I just pick up the phone and make a phone call to their agent. And we have a conversation about something that's not in my process anywhere. It happened. There's an event that happened that needed a response, and instinctually here with the response. So I want to start with the idea of for sale by owner. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I do think in this day and age, there's technology, there's, streamlined services, do-it-yourself services. And look, there's always going to be people that fix their own cars and do their own taxes and, these sorts of things. There's always going to be people that sell their own houses as well. I want to start with this and ask you a question here. So in the National Association of Realtors puts out their profile of buyers and sellers every year, as you know. And there were a couple of things that stuck out to me in this year's report, the 2024 end of 2024 report. And it highlighted three challenges for sale by owner sellers. They were getting the price right, selling within the planned time frame, and handling the paperwork. Only 6% of real estate transactions in the US were for sale by owners. So it's a fairly small sample size. But I think the other part of that is roughly 90% of transactions, of sellers for that matter, use an agent. And historically, about 85 to 90% of those home sellers had a good experience with their agent. So, I mean, I think agents are doing a good job across the board. But what stuck out to me the most in these stats, and this will be maybe the last stat I come with today, they were looking at seller satisfaction. And relative to that 85, 90% seller satisfaction with their agent selling a house, 44%, 40 to 45% of for sale by owners reported having a good experience. And, you know, a lot of those sellers may have even known their buyers personally. And so that stat may even be skewed a little higher. But can you speak to that for a minute? Again, we're talking about the value of a great real estate agent. What should a seller who's maybe contemplating going about it on their own, do-it-yourself style, what are the pitfalls of that potentially? And do you have a horror story here or there where you've taken over maybe for sale by owner? Because that's what a lot of we call them abandoned listings. For sale by owner, it starts that way, and then they give up and they end up hiring an agent anyway. But talk about the sort of the pitfalls of maybe trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to my mind with a for sale by owner is oftentimes our job as real estate agents is to protect people from themselves, right? And, you know, there's, go figure, we're in the sales industry business, so there's scripts for every objection that a real estate could come up with. And they always say, like, would you perform surgery on yourself with your greatest asset? You know, which are like, I love it because they ask questions where like nobody in their right mind would be like, yeah, I'd perform surgery on myself, you know, which always makes me laugh. But what I do think is true from that is this. You know, everybody thinks they're like, how hard is this selling a house, right? I'm going to put a sign up in front of my house. People are going to come. My house is really awesome. And so they have no real point of reference, right? It's like, how are you coming to a conclusion on the value of your house? Oh, I looked on Zillow. I looked on county tax records. Well, I can tell you right now, right? Your eyes right there, Richard, are going, I smell opportunity, right? Because generally speaking, you know, county records are going to be low. Zillow can flux anywhere.
All over the place. Zillow admits themselves it's, you know, a variation of 10 to 40%. It's right. It may not even be close.
So first off, you know, how are you actually evaluating your house and the value of what it's worth? Secondly, what they don't know is there are real estate agents that get lists of people that are for sale by owners. And if you get 10 calls, probably 8.5, 9 of those phone calls are going to be real estate agents, and they're going to, you know, this is what they do all day long. And so they're going to ask you a series of questions, and they're going to say, well, I have a buyer that might be interested. Can I come by and take a look? They usually don't have a buyer that's interested, right? And what they're trying to do is get their foot in the door so they can create a conversation, because they know that eventually you're just going to get worn out. And within a month or two, they're going to call you back, you know, every couple of weeks. Say, have you sold your house yet? No. They're going to try to offer some services for free, or they're going to give you some kind of a la carte, you know, commission structure, probably, which is great. I mean, these are all things real estate agents do. I'm just telling you, this is the stuff nobody talks about.
All sorts of options for all sorts of people, for sure.
Totally. And their model is like, you know, I'm looking for people that are raising their hands, that are saying, I want to sell a house. Well, people that are for sale by owners, you know, they're raising their hands. And generally speaking, they think they can do it themselves, or they had a poor experience in the past with a real estate agent, and they don't see the value of working with somebody that knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is like, you're not a good set of eyes on your own house, right? Yes. And so a lot of people, they don't know what to do, right? They're like, oh, if we just, and they'll think of a project, right? Like, oh, we're going to finish the basement before we list our house. You know, it's like, that may not be a good idea. Yeah. You know,
they misvalue things around their house because they love them. They put in $100,000 pool. They love the pool, but in Utah, that pool's only good 4 months a year. It may not be worth $20,000 to somebody else.
Exactly. So it's having somebody that's helping them navigate through what is value, and then also how to highlight and show your house, right? Take your house and make it a home, and make it a product that you're selling, right? Like, you know, in Utah, we love Jesus, but when you're selling your house, you got to kind of tame down like the family genealogy chart that's going down the stairs. You got to tame that back a little bit. You got to tame back Jesus a little bit. You know, not that you can't have Jesus out a little bit, but you just
we love Jesus here.
We love
This is a
Jesus.
Jesus friendly house here.
It's a Jesus friendly podcast.
Not with all of my guests. We've had a couple of feisty ones where we've let some language fly.
Yeah. What's the saying? It says, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. Have you ever seen that shirt?
I haven't seen that shirt.
That's the shirt. That's the shirt I should be wearing. Anyway, what's funny? I mean, anyway, to go back to the whole for sale by owner thing, what I tell people is you could hypothetically sell your house without my help, right? And I actually tell my sellers up front, like, hey, is there anybody that you think might want to buy your house? And I will exclude those people from the contract. They're like, hey, my neighbor, they have a son or daughter, that wants to buy the house. This happens often in like estate sale situations. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I say, hey, well, let's exclude those people from the contract. If they do end up choosing to buy it, I'll charge you a fee to make sure the transaction goes through and just charge you for the paperwork and help you get to the other side of this. So really a lot of it is just agents being aware enough to meet people where they're at. Nobody likes to be sold to. And I feel like until you can really sit down with someone and say, what are you trying to accomplish? And there's an openness to them about that conversation. It's a hard conversation to have. And that's why for sale by owners are a really big target, especially in a shifting market, because anybody can sell a house when when you've got a less than 1 month inventory, right, and, multiple offers and you're selling it, right? Anyone can do that. But where the challenge comes in is just like, what happens when you have a normal market where there's a 3 to 5 month inventory and your house ain't going to sell in a day, right? And a lot of times these people, they just don't know what they don't know. They start doing mental warfare on themselves, or they're stubborn. They have a belief that's not true and it's going to prevent them. And then you got to get them to the consequence of, if you don't sell your house, like, what's the consequence of this? Some people are like, they'll say up front, like, I don't care. If I don't get my price, I'm not going to sell. And then when you start to really get into it, you're like, okay, great. So you stay here. What happens then?
Yeah. You're like, well, why are we even having this conversation then? Like, if you don't want to sell your house, then why am I even here?
Right.
Don't tell me you're fine not selling it if we're having this conversation.
But if they answered that question and said, we don't have a motivation, if we can get this much, we'll sell it, that's an indicator for me their motivation's really low. And if they're not willing to go into why they're really selling and they just keep stonewalling that, the truth is you can't help, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like what you said. Number, I have a page of notes here already, and I learned this stuff from you, but you mentioned sometimes it's often we're protecting them from themselves. The other two aspects of that I learned from you is we lead, we guide, and we also protect. And that comes with market data and market feel and in all these different things. But that in a nutshell, in one sense, I believe is a good agent's job, to lead, guide, and protect. Yeah. I think also that initial conversation, helping someone get clarity around what's most important to them and not just settling for the first answer, because that first answer probably maybe has some truth to it, but you're very good at this. You start to like open people up a little bit by the way you progress through some of these questions to help them really get to a deep level where it's like, man, you know what? Like, if I could sell this house and XYZ and end up doing this, like, that would allow me to spend more time with my family and, be on that beach in Hawaii with my wife that we, took that trip 10 years ago. We've been trying to like recreate whatever. You get to this level of clarity and not emotion, but just this, like, they really know what they're doing. Because selling a house is not without its emotions. It's not without its hurdles. It's hard. It's emotional. It's tiring. And when someone understands really why they're doing it, whether it's financial, emotional, whatever the reason is, they're in it. And now you can really lead and guide and protect them because you know it's important to them and they know it's important.
Yeah, I think at a core level, Rychen, we all just want to feel understood. I just want to feel like somebody gets me. And magically, marketing has gotten so good at this, right? With our algorithms and stuff. I remember the Ron Swanson scene where they search his cookies and she shows him and he goes and takes his computer and throws it in the garbage can because he just freaks out about it. But the reality is like, we live in this world where, technology is pretty awesome, but and I still don't think it replaces the human heart-to-heart connection, right?
At some level, people want to be able to call somebody and say, talk me off this ledge. Tell me it's going to be okay. Yeah. I'm stressed. I was on the phone with a seller today. We're either going to close next Wednesday or this deal is going to fall through and we're going to have to go find another buyer. And they're trying to get a rental lease together because they're going to make a little pit stop on their next place before they build their next home. Should we sign this lease? Should we put down money? Are we going to close next Wednesday? They just need someone to tell them it's going to be okay. Someone who's on top of it, someone who's communicating well with the other agent. And to our credit and to her credit, the other agent's been fantastic with her buyers and communicating. But like, I don't think that ever goes away. I don't think tech replaces that human touch, human feel, just human connection that at some level everybody's looking for, whether they want to admit it or not. But
Yeah.
especially, I think as we go more towards tech on some things and become a little more disconnected, I think that's really going to be, that's going to remain, I guess I should say, a very important part of some of these big life transition moments, which selling or buying a house is.
Yeah, I don't care what people say. It is an emotional thing. I mean, if you really get down to it, what makes America so great, Rich? And it's the fact that, 70% of the people in this country own a piece of land. They own some dirt. They own the building they live in. There is something that happens when we have ownership of something. Not only is there wealth generated through it, right? We can show lots of
Sure.
the average net worth of a renter versus a homeowner, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
talking
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of thousands of
Hundreds of
dollars
thousands,
difference.
multiples of multiples. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are like data wise pushing this, but let's just take a step back. I have a fire pit in my backyard. Do you know in the summer we live in our backyard?
Mm-hmm.
We eat in our backyard. I mean, my wife does landscape design and she's amazing at it. And we have a living space in our backyard. My home is like a sacred place to me. It's my refuge. It's my place. I don't care if I live in a shack or if I live in a mansion. Like there's something about the feeling of like I have community. I belong. I have pride of ownership. I wish everyone did, Rich, and I wish everyone had pride of
Sure.
ownership. But
Sure.
to some level, right? Like, I'm getting past the whole like, well, you'd have to pay rent somewhere else, and your net
Right.
worth.
Yeah. It's
I'm
more
just,
than just a payment somewhere. Yeah.
it's totally more than that. And I think anybody that says that's not true is lying. They're lying because they say, "Oh, it doesn't matter where I live." I say, "Really, really, it doesn't matter where you live? You really mean that?" Because like, if that's true, like where you're living right now is giving you nothing. It's increased the joy that you're experiencing in life at zero. Nothing. I don't think that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go into maybe the transaction now, because again, man, there's a thousand things that happen in every buy or sell, and our clients, consumers, most of them will never ever see these things or even know that they occur. But there is a lot of heavy lifting that goes on. And I feel like as the real estate agent, we're sort of playing quarterback on this, whether we're on the buy side or the sell side. We're coordinating with the lenders and the title company and the inspectors and the other agent. Like we're playing quarterback. We got to know where everybody is in the field at all times, knowing exactly what they're going to do and what they're doing next. So can you give us? I've got an example that came up with a listing last week, but do you have any examples where you were doing heavy lifting behind the scenes and maybe no one even knew about it, but it kept the deal together, it benefited your client in some way, but like, man, like most agents aren't doing that either because they don't know or they don't think they need to, or I hope it's not the case, but I think probably in some cases maybe they just don't care as much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, what do they say? Moving, amongst like speaking at a funeral and death, right? Like these are like
Top
when they
three
talk
most
about,
hated activities, most feared activities.
yes,
Yeah.
feared or stressful activities people are
Yeah.
going to go through. And, the reality is like there is always something that comes up along the way that, you don't see. I think what experience does, though, is it leads us to believe or ask better questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I can tell you, for example, when I get a pre approval letter and I call the loan officer, I can tell you if that's a real pre approval or not
You're saying
in that
you're representing the
conversation.
seller, you get an offer from a buyer, it has a pre-approval letter with it, you're calling the
Totally.
lender to vet the buyer. Yeah.
Totally, right? It's like you call the lender, hey, I just wanted to reach out. I'm calling about, John
Yeah.
and Susie
And
Smith.
what does every lender say? Yeah, great buyers, no problem, ready to go. And
Yeah,
then you start going a little deeper with them. You're like, well, they're like, whoa, 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 I did not expect these questions.
exactly. Exactly. You just start asking a few more questions, a few more questions. And then there's
Yeah.
just, there's all these things where it's like you said at the beginning of this, it's like real estate and life, there is an art and a science to everything. Okay.
Mhm.
So the science is all right, we're first time meeting with a buyer. What are we going to do? We're going to get them pre-approved. We're going to talk to them about the process. We're
Process
going to set
stuff.
up a
Yeah.
home search. We're going to that is the science. This is what you need to know. Well, then what happens after that really is the art, right? Because we're going to get a list of 5 homes. We're going to go out and look at houses. And then as you're looking at houses, you're like watching the wife, you're watching the husband, you're watching the client, right? You're interacting with them. You're asking questions. I just had a listing appointment this last week. And I walked in, and this lady's lived in her house for like 20, 25 years. Richin, she likes to smoke. And we live in America, and you can smoke in here.
Mhm.
This is the best thing I said. Where I was going over the market analysis, I said, but you do realize the fact that you have been smoking in your home that has had a negative impact, that will have a negative impact on your ability to resell.
On your health and your house.
Yeah. And she said something funny. She said, I said, you did know that. And she said, she looks at me and she goes, yeah, I knew that. And it's my house.
Right.
And I was like, that's freaking true. It is your house. You can actually do whatever you want. You just need to understand that there's right price, condition, and marketing. Those are the three conversations we're having when we sit down and talk with you. So I'm sorry, I'm not giving you like a ton
No,
of
let me give you an example of one I had
examples.
last week because I think again this is one where again if our job is to fight for our clients and whatnot, I had a listing where we were under contract, was going smoothly. It has an HOA, it's a townhouse, so there has insurance policy attached to it. And I get a call from the agent, great agent, experienced. We had a great transaction. He says, hey, we got a problem. My lender, who I also knew the lender, I'd been in touch with her throughout the process, vetted the buyer, asked these deep questions about have you not only seen the documents, but are the assets seasoned? Have you run them through automated underwriting? Like, what do you perceive for conditions here? Like, more than just, hey, thanks for the pre-approval letter. Can you verify you actually sent it to me? But the issue was the underwriter had asked for the insurance policy of the HOA. And apparently, when it was renewed last summer, it was not paid in full. That's a problem. And the agent's like, hey, like, we can't get a insurance policy here from the HOA. Like, you have a property you can't sell. We're gonna have to back out. You're gonna have to give us back all the earnest money. By the way, like, that's not great for us either because we're under contract on our own purchase. And I knew my client was at work because they have, with what their schedule is. And I made the decision in a moment of, I can tell my client about this right now, or I can just solve the problem and let him know after the fact. So between the lender and the other agent and I, we hounded the HOA. We figured out what was going on. We found the underwriter for the insurance policy. We found another agent who we both knew who had sold a property in there previously a couple of months ago, called him, said, hey, your buyer bought this property. Did you have any problems with it? Not a problem. Let me put you in touch with my lender. They'll talk us through it. Anyway, within a matter of about an hour, we went from, oh my gosh, this deal may be dead and we have a really big problem in our hands to, yeah, we'll close in 2 days. We're good. And like, that's just one of the things where I get to call my client at the end of the day and be like, hey, just want to give you an update on what happened today. No problems here. Little, didn't breathe very well for a little while, but like we got through it and this and that. He's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Well, telling you now, and we got through it and we're fine. And some of the things obviously we need to bring our clients into. Some things they need to be aware of, like while we're working through it. But sometimes like we just take care of it. We just do it. Sometimes like maybe we can't fix every problem, but I think that goes to the other part of being a great agent is we're always honest with them. We're always going to be transparent with them. Maybe we try and come with solutions when we're also coming to them with the problem. But I mean, I feel like I did another episode with another agent about, the sort of the communication crisis in real estate, how both agent to client and agent to agent, like it's lacking. But if we're not honest with our clients, like I don't even know why we're doing this because again, they're hiring us, they're trusting us with this huge life change, probably their largest financial asset. The least we can do is be transparent and honest with them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let's go to an area that you're really, yeah, go ahead.
I just think it comes back to personal integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes back to trust. I think it comes back to valuing the relationship. Mm-hmm. I had an experience. I'll give you the short version. I'd worked with this client multiple times in the past. As time went on, I had a few other people on my team help them. Long story short, when they went to sell their most recent house, they didn't use me. And I thought for sure, I knew they were going to be selling. And they reached out to them. And what was interesting in that whole exchange, what I learned is, I had a discussion with the wife, but I really wanted to talk to the husband because he was kind of the decision maker in this one. I sent him a text and I sent him an email. I left him a voicemail, over about a few follow-ups, right? And he never called me back. And I sat there and I thought, I know what's wrong. We're not in relation.
We call it flow in ninja selling, which we adhere to, right? We're not in flow with them.
I'm not in flow. We're not in relation. Like if he valued the relationship, regardless of if he was going to list with me or not, he just would have called me back and he would have said, hey dude, I'm sorry. And then I could have got some really good, valuable feedback. Yeah. He might have said, hey, it's nothing against you. We just want to do this. Or he could have said, dude, you haven't been present at all in the last few years. We didn't feel comfortable working with you. Whatever the thing was, right? But the reason I bring that up is I just sit there and think the truth is a two-way street. How committed am I to receiving the truth? Something that I think is absolutely true. And this is not just true with real estate. This is true with life. Life will give you as much truth as you're willing to receive. But if you're not willing to receive it, what you'll do is you'll just step over it with a story, with an excuse. You'll put your head in the sand and say that's not true. But if if you're really living your life as authentically as possible, you actually become a container that can be like, I can absorb truth. I am actually here for you to tell me the actual truth of what's going on. And I, in turn, will do the best I can to, share what I'm experiencing in this thing. And what I found is like, this is a communication thing, but most people, if I sat there at the beginning of a listing presentation or a buyer presentation and said, hey, here's how it's going to go. We're going to look at about 100 houses over the next 6 months. And maybe we're going to write, dozens of offers, and maybe we'll buy one house. Do you guys want to buy a house?
You want to get on board with that?
Yeah. Versus, but like, can I be totally honest with you? In your price range, what you're trying to expect and get out of this is less likely. In the last year, there's been 4 houses that have sold that meet your criteria in your price range. And 3 of them were outside of your, general area where you wanted to be, right? It'd be like that conversation. And then it'd be like, at that point, they'd have a choice to make. Either I need to know this is going to be a long process, or, I might be in a spot where I need to spend more money, or I just need to accept that that's probably not a reality right now. So,
and that's not a conversation you're going to follow with, so I can't help you. You're just trying to be honest with them about, here's what you're up against. Let's see if we can fit the needs and wants, or maybe we need to change location or whatever it is. Like, I'm here to help you with that, but I need to be open and honest with you up front. I'm not going to lead you down this path just so you can fail.
Right. It's not helping anybody. That's right.
Yeah. No, I think that goes for buyers and for sellers as well, too. I mean, I guess I see right now, we see them online, we see them on the MLS, homes that get priced at prices where you're just like, I don't know where you're coming up with that price. Again, your price doesn't match the condition versus what's there in the market, what the market is bearing as far as price point goes. And I worry that there are agents taking listings simply to take listings without being honest, without setting correct expectations, I guess. You're leading your clients to failure by just taking what they're saying. You're not pushing back. You're not giving them any context, any data. You're not giving them anything to like really succeed well, because you probably didn't spend the time to actually, again, meet their, talking about what's important to them, help them get clarity, really get to know them, really hear them. You're just throwing things at the wall and hoping you find the right buyer, which sometimes maybe you do. 2020, 2021. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, it was pretty easy to sell a house in 2020, 2021. The only thing I had to deal with was, which offer do I want to take and who has the least amount of contingencies? Like, that's not a terrible spot to be in as a seller. But like you mentioned at the beginning, like, that market has changed. And now agents more than ever need to be having these conversations. Days on market are longer. Sellers are, even with multiple offers, in a lot of cases, giving concessions because buyers need that. And if you're not having those conversations, and especially about price and condition, like, you can't walk into a house and say, just ignore everything you see and be like, oh yeah, we can price it at that. I mean, you may have to have some hard conversations about, hey, like, you need to clean that up. Might need to replace that. If you want this price, here's what you're going to need to do to be able to get that price. And if we're not being honest with them, and I don't know how you expect to be able to serve your client at a high level if you can't get basic honesty correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Let's talk about something you're really good at. And the reason you're really good at is because you're always keeping a calm demeanor. And that's negotiation. Negotiation, as an agent once told me before I was even in real estate, negotiation is where the money is won and lost for buyers and sellers. Tell me a little about your art of the deal and something that people aren't going to find on Google when they Google, how to negotiate a real estate offer for agents or consumers.
Well, what people don't understand is the negotiation starts right out of the gates. Mm-hmm. Like, it's actually happening before you're negotiating.
First contact with the agent, right?
First contact with the agent, because what you're doing is you're building rapport and trust.
Yes.
And I'm just going to make the assumption that I'm working with a good agent in this conversation. Let's just break it down simplistic. The seller's agent has been hired by the seller to help the seller sell the house for the most amount of money in a reasonable period of time, right? With the least amount of hassle, right? Let's break it down simplistically for the buyer. The buyer wants to buy a home that they like, get the best deal possible to meet their timeline of what they're trying to ultimately accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. In the least stressed amount possible, right?
Always.
So there's some crossovers in this. Right? Now, what the negotiation is, everybody immediately thinks price when they think negotiation, right? But that's just one of the things that you're actually negotiating, because there's dates, there's contingencies, there are inspections, mm-hmm. There's possibly appraisal issues or finance issues or extension of deadlines that come up. There are so many things. And, going back to Stephen Covey, he talks about that we have an emotional bank account with people. Right. And we're either making deposits or withdrawals in our interactions. And, my opinion, I heard an agent say that. They said, honey is a lot sweeter than vinegar, you know? And what it means is like, sit down with someone and figure out actually what they're trying to accomplish and what's important to them. Now, with any seller, right? They go on the market on the first weekend. If you're negotiating, that's going to have a different tone of negotiation. And if that seller's been on the market for 6 months.
Right. Or has had an offer to cancel and they're like back to the well for the third time trying to find someone. Yeah.
Right. Or they've got a home they're trying to close on, or a new construction, or
It's back to the
a
emotions. It's back
relocation.
to emotional management that comes in negotiations also.
And there might have been a point in that where, you know, when they first listened, they said, we won't take a dime less than XYZ.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you know, you're in a home inspection, you realize that it needs a new furnace or the roof is, you know, old. And now you're renegotiating again. And the hard part is what I found is, for example, when a seller when you go and do a listing presentation with the seller, they always hear the highest number that you say.
Yeah.
Right.
They hear what they want to hear. Yeah.
They've
already
looked
on Zillow and Redfin. They already have that number in their head and you better hit that. And yeah.
And then also when you do a price reduction, the seller is mentally still at the last price, even though they're not when they're advertising. So an offer comes in, they're like, are they kidding me?
I just lost $35,000. Well, did you really lose it? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
But it's the same with buyers, because buyers will say, well, I got to feel like I get a deal. Well, what does that mean, Mr. Buyer? What does that actually mean when you say you got to get a deal? Well, I got to get it for 25% less. So does that mean that the house could just be 25% overpriced and we've got to get it down 25%? Like, what are you basing this arbitrary number on? You know, I just talked to a friend of mine, and bless his heart, this is like one of my good buddies. He's like, you know, I'm looking for a house in the like $3 million range, but I want to buy it for $2 million. And I was like, okay, tell me more. So you want a 35% discount
or something like that? Is that the area you're looking in?
Well, it was just funny. He deems, right? He's a deal guy. So he's deemed like, I'm just looking for this, you know, unique thing. I said, so tell me more. Because like, you're probably looking for someone in a distress type situation. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to drive around. And if I see a house I like, I'm just going to go knock on their door. And I'm like, well, tell me how that works out for you. You know,
that may go to my next question, but yeah, keep going.
Well, it's just funny, right? Because he has a perception of what he believes going into the situation. Going back to principle number 1, real estate agent is to lead, guide, and protect people through a process. And oftentimes protecting them from themselves or ultimately false expectations that they have that most likely aren't going to happen. And so you got to get them back to, well, tell me what's important about the house that you want to buy. What's important to you about getting it, you know, a third off your price? Just let them go with these things. Try to talk it out with them a little bit. So, but negotiation, what I'm trying to say is negotiation is so interesting because everybody is coming from their own point of reference of what they think. So ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to present a case in such a way that makes sense for the other person to say yes, because it's in alignment with what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that, again, what I would say is, okay, what are the tactics of negotiation you're not going to find on Google? Negotiation is not just the terms on the page. Like you said, it's rapport building. I gave you a buyer I helped close on a purchase this morning, actually. We were not the first offer in on that house. And we were not the best offer in on the house at any point in time. Anyway, but there were 2 offers, and we were, you know, they already had the first offer. Was like, hey, wait, we're gonna make an offer. Like, give us some time. Like, I again, from the very first contact with the agent, there was rapport building going on, and so she's like, yeah, no problem. I can give you till, you know, whatever, 7:00 tonight. Okay, great. And then they're reviewing the next night. And she's in great contact with me. Hey, I'm reviewing at 5. She's keeping me in the loop. Hey, we just finished the first offer. It took an hour and a half to go through it. We're just starting yours. And just like, again, like, I can't put this in a manual or in a process book, but my instinctual thought is, man, you've been there a long time. You guys have a long evening ahead of you. Can I DoorDash you all some dinner, like the sellers and you? And she's like, oh, that's very kind. I was like, no, I am 100% serious right now. Like, this is not me trying to get an offer one. I'm just like, you know, agent to agent, like, I know you're having a long night. Can I DoorDash you some food? We did not get that offer. We lost out to the other offer, even though we were better. There were some nuances to the offers and things like that, things that my buyers needed. We did not get the offer. Well, the other offer canceled within like 24 hours because of something. Guess who got the very first phone call before it even went back on the market? I did. And we were under contract, right? And then later in the process, they took another backup offer, which was significantly higher than our offer, right? It would have made all the sense in the world for the sellers to be like, hey, like, we want to push these guys out because we want to go with this better offer behind us. But my rapport with the agent through the entire process, inspection and things like that, was we were working for our clients, yes, but we were trying to keep our buyers and our sellers collectively together. And we weren't going to let the two of us get in the way of them completing a transaction. And it was touch and go, but again, that rapport building is part of the negotiation, because whatever you and I both know, that whatever an agent's feeling, if they're not careful about it, they're going to convey those emotions to their client, and the client's going to feel those same emotions multiplied. So if we're not calm, cool, collected with each other as agents, it's just going to make it messy. And I think that starts with just good communication between each other. Hey, we're all on the same page. We're all trying to accomplish the same thing here. We're trying to bring a buyer and seller together, help them get to the finish line. And, if we can have that good communication, emotionless communication almost, I think we can do a lot better for our clients, so that we're not getting in the way. Because when we go back to I can't believe the seller, they won't, bend on anything here, and they're just being hard-headed, and, we should just tell them to go screw themselves. Well, if we tell that to our buyers, guess what they're going to feel? And guess how they're going to react? Yeah, we should just go tell them to F themselves and all these things. Again, that's not how real estate, I think, should be done. That's not us helping our clients accomplish what we talked about in the beginning, which was, hey, what are we really trying to do here? I can help you with that. I can lead and guide and protect you through that. If we're part of the problem, we're not leading, guiding, or protecting.
That's right.
Tell me your biggest myth that you see online that maybe even gets you fired up a little bit, maybe pisses you off a little bit. The market myths that you see that, buyers and sellers need to just put to bed and forget about, because it's just not accurate. Maybe for our market in particular, maybe in Salt Lake.
Well, I mean, I think one of the ones is just pay attention to where you're searching for homes. All the time people find homes that have sold, a couple of years ago, but it's on some website that wasn't updated or whatever. Right.
Mike, I tell you mine. We hear a
Yeah.
lot about interest rates right now. People hear, oh, the 10-year treasury did this or that, or mortgage rates today are XYZ or whatever it is. And they think, either they think they can't buy a house. Well, they throw their hands up, I can't afford that. Or, prices are too high. They hear about, prices hitting a new high or whatever. They talk themselves out of buying or selling because they don't have accurate information. That drives me nuts more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think that's an accurate assumption, or not assumption. I mean, it's an accurate reflection. I think a lot of people feel powerless. They feel like they're stuck. They're like, man, I'm never going to get a house, right?
Mhm.
And the truth is where there's a will, there's a way. It just may take a little bit longer for some than others. But there are programs that exist that you probably have no idea that exist that might make it possible for you to get the house. There's what you know, there's what you think you know, there's what you don't even know that you don't even know, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people fall in that category. There's these myths, I got to put 20% down to buy a house. Hopefully nobody believes that anymore. But
I hope not. I feel like we've had, as an industry, done enough marketing that hopefully no one believes that anymore.
yeah, and I mean, what are some other things? I mean, I'll just tell you the thing that I found is that you just have to understand that a lot of stuff that's out there, numbers can always be manipulated, right? So
Mhm.
let me give you an example.
Sure.
You read a headline that says bank foreclosures up 200%.
Mhm.
And
You're
you're
like,
like,
oh my gosh, world's falling apart.
is everyone losing their house? I mean, they're up
Right.
200%. What's going
Yeah.
on? Then you go to find out that, there was 5 foreclosures last year in your area, and there's 15 this year, right?
Yeah.
By the way, would that be 200%? I don't even know, Rich.
I'd be like more than that. But to do your point, again, rather than bank failure, let's use foreclosure. I think that's a good example. Foreclosures are up 100% this year in Salt Lake. I don't know if that's the stat. I'm just making it up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you have buyers who are like, you know what, Ryan, don't show me anything that's not a foreclosure. I want to get a good deal and blah, blah,
That's
blah,
right.
blah, blah. And you're like, well, 100% like that. Yes, that's a big increase. But like, what's the number? Did it increase from, like I said, 50 to 100? Yeah, there's 50 additional foreclosure homes that weren't on the market relative to last year, but is that really going to change the market right now versus, okay, we had 4,000 or what was, how many sales did we have in Salt Lake last year from the housing forecast? Like 12,000 something or like that.
Yeah.
12,000 sales, give or
Which is
take.
would normally have like almost like what, like 18,000,
18, something like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we increase from 50 to 100 foreclosures in the course of 12,000 total sales, does that really make a difference? Probably not. But that's the headline, right? Closures increase 100%. And yeah, we got to be careful about the data, especially as a consumer. And that's, I think, where an agent, if they don't know the data and don't know the market, they're not going to be able to help you walk through that and actually put context to what it is that may be, being blasted for clickbait or whatever it is. So let me ask you this, and let's maybe wrap up with this. In your opinion, what separates a great agent from a good agent? I don't even want to deal with bad agents anymore. What separates a great agent from a good agent?
Dude, it's consistency, attention to details, and I would say communication, just foreseeing, setting correct expectations and leading and guiding them through it and letting them know what's going on. I mean, it's like, I'll give you an example. Like you can check in with your clients in two ways. You can wait for them to reach out to you, or you can reach out to them. Sometimes an update is, hey, I don't have anything new to tell you. I just wanted to let you know it's Tuesday, and hadn't talked to you in a couple of days. We haven't had any showings in the last week. Here's kind of what's going on. You know, so I mean, it's just I give the example of Kyle Beckerman. Okay, Kyle Beckerman is a really good soccer player. Played for Real Salt Lake for a bunch of years. And one time I went to a game and I watched it with my friend, who actually is a really good soccer player. This is towards the end of his career, and I said to my friend, I said, "Man, Kyle Beckerman's really lost a step." And my friend pauses, and then he says, "That might be true. He's older now," but he said, "There's about 1,000 things he does during a game that nobody pays attention to. But he is literally dictating everything that's happening in the middle of that soccer field by the 1,000 little things that he's doing that he's probably done for so long he doesn't even know he's doing it."
There's instinctual,
but it's like, it's instinctual. It's just so intentional. And I would just tell you, a good real estate agent, like the best advice that I give any real estate agent is, I'd say, the best way to get more business is do a really great job of the business that you have. Right. And when I say that, what I mean by that is like, it's the platinum rule. Like, we just went to a presentation with Ritz-Carlton, and they talked about how they create an experience and how they're anticipating the needs of their guests. And we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, like this level of respect. They're meeting people at a level where they're treating them very well and giving them the benefit of the doubt always. Right. And I just think these are the things, that make the great real estate agents great. It's the 1,000 little things that they do that just make it a great thing. And so, I mean, it's interesting as I say this out loud. It's like, I'm always thinking, I can always get a little bit better. But that's part of it too. It's just the knowledge that it's like, we always have room to grow, and that's why we're continually training and going to, CE classes and attending events, because it's like, it's the 1%, getting 1% better every day,
Yeah, I love that. And I think that goes back to where my core, not purpose, but like, if I could wave my magic wand, it would be able to show people, and not just me. Like, there are agents, I admire you, and there are agents all over this valley that I have so much admiration and respect for, because they're so good at all these little 1,000 little things. And I don't even see them all. But I guess I wish as an industry we could like highlight those things so that we're not compared to used car salespeople anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're great agents. They space the field, so to speak, in a way that, like, you're moving the defenders with a step this way or that way, and you're opening up a lane for your striker. Is that a position in soccer?
That is a position. Great job, Rychen.
You've taken me enough soccer games that I know what a striker is now. Like, there are these 1,000 little things that happen, and I wish we could just, as an industry, like, get those out there. One, so people can know like what we're doing for them, but two, like, to really be able to like contrast a great agent from someone who's literally there because everybody's in real estate for their own reasons, right? And I don't want to put anybody down for that, but there are the agents who care more and care less and put time and effort into their craft and who don't. But I just think that's really important that we be able to show people all the things that we do. And sometimes that is simply, again, creating a good experience. And maybe they don't know all the things, but what they do know at the end is that they felt listened to, they felt heard, they felt important, they felt like you were on their side. And ultimately, you walk away from the transaction, and maybe you're not hanging out on weekends, but there's respect there. You can drop by at Christmas time and drop off some goodies or whatever it is for their kids or whatever it is. They're happy to see you. I think that's the mark of a great agent, is they can maintain those relationships even after a transaction closes. And maybe there isn't another one that happens for another 10 years, but the relationship is still intact and strong. And that I learned from you that real estate is a relationship-based business. It can be a lot of different businesses. It can be a lead-based business. It can be a churn and burn. But I feel like I went to the Bryan Hurd School of Relationship-Based Real Estate and got a degree there. And I'm so grateful for that, for you. So I'm going to give you the last word. Anything else you want to get off your chest about being a great real estate agent and the value of one?
I'm pausing to really pause and think about that. Mm-hmm. I think gratitude is just the start of everything that's good. If you can wake up every morning and just be grateful. I mean, this is not just real estate agent. This is life. The people that I like being around are usually grateful, and they express their gratitude, and they live their life with a level of gratitude and reverence towards the fact that they're alive. And, you know, real estate can absolutely be stressful and it can drain you. And you can have days where you're like, man, I don't want to do that day again. But at the core, like, it really is a blessing to do something that matters, to help people through a process to get them, you know, to where they ultimately want to go, to be a part of that special space in their life that a lot of people don't get to see. When I remind myself, when I act and live from that place, you know, like, I just realized, like, well, there's a football team, and I can't remember who it was. I swear it was like Jim Harbaugh or somebody like that. But they kept saying, "Who's got it better than us? Nobody." You know, I don't remember where it's from, but I remember someone would say, "Who's got it better than us?" And they say, "Nobody." Maybe, you know, I can't remember. But like, the reality is like, that's the kind of people that I love to be around. That's the kind of person that I strive to be. And that's not just with real estate. That's with all my interactions. Magically, all my friends that I consider really close. There's this level of shared values, you know? And so, anyway, I think that's what I just say. The other thing too is we live in an abundant world. But even though there was only 12,000 transactions last year, a third almost less transactions than there normally is, there's still enough. There's still enough. And there's people out there that you are going to be able to serve and give them a wonderful experience that are there. So, like, wake up every day and believe that.
Yeah. We've talked about this a lot, where sometimes it feels like every transaction is hard, and yet I feel in my heart, and this doesn't need to be a religious thing or anything, but I feel in my heart that these are people that I have been led to and who have been led to me in some way or another, that I was meant to help them. I'm going to care more about these people than anybody else for whatever the circumstances may be. And because of that, I'm grateful for that, but also I'm going to put my head down and go to work and make sure I do the best job I can for them.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Amen.
I appreciate you joining us today. This has been great. I love the conversation. You and I could talk about real estate for hours and hours. We did so on the way up and back to a Jazz game the other night, and about life and all the things. So I appreciate you. I want you to know that. And I want to thank you for listening today. If this was helpful for you, share with a friend, share with your agent, share with your friend who maybe needs to buy or sell a house. And we'll see you next time on House Money.